In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a heads-up display, or HUD. Basically, it puts information on your viewer screen as you're playing the game. So I'm going to show you an example. So if I go back to the game, you remember that this game from last time where we had basically two coins, and when you collected them, you won. So if I play it now, you'll notice in the top corner, I got my counter, and if I move forward, it goes to 1, and then 2, and then it goes to a win screen that I made. So I'm going to start a new one. Let's just show you how it all looks. You notice I got rid of my empty object. I don't need my empty object right now. So when my coin dies, I just go send a subject line, and we don't need to put to 2. You'll see why in a second. Okay, my cube hasn't changed, it just moves. All right. In my win screen, I just have Susie, just because I just want to see Susie when I win. And my HUD, I got a text, and within my text, I will get that subject coin, okay, that we get when the coin dies, and it will create a property for it called counter, and it will add 1. Okay, notice it adds 1 every time, and it adds it to, or assigns it really to this text property, because we'll name this one text from the counter. So every time it adds 1 here, it adds to that one. And then here, what we'll do is, once we got it equal to 2, okay, once our counter is equal to 2, we're going to set it to our win scene. We'll remove the overhead display, and we'll remove the game scene, so we only see Susie when we win. So you can do it yourself, or you can follow along step by step with me, as long as I don't mess this up too much. All right, so I'm actually going to open up my old one, coins, okay, where I still have the empty object, which I'm going to get rid of. So I'm just going to delete this empty object, so we don't need it, but in a second, because I'm going to change this one to game at the top. I don't have any scenes, so I'm going to add my first scene called win, and I'm just going to Shift A and add my little Susie. I'm going to move it down a little bit. I'm going to deselect, Shift A, add a camera, okay, and in this case my camera I want to be ortho, okay, Alt R to look straight down, and I'm just going to move it up. So if I press 0 right now, I see Susie when I win. Looks great. All right, so I'm going to add another scene, and this one I'm going to call it HUD, okay, and just like before, I need to add a camera. Okay, and in this case I'm going to do ortho because I want the camera to look 2D, right? You want your HUD to look 2D. I'm just going to change my view here to move it up to where I want. So now if I press 0, that's how it looks. All right, so we are going to add text. So I'll deselect, I'm going to do Shift A, text, and in this case, remember how before we did Alt C to get rid of the text? We actually want to keep it as a text this time. So I can press Tab and type in 0 and tab out of it. And I'm just going to move it to the top left corner of my scene. Now, a couple things though where I have to make sure is because if I go above 10, or 9, I should say, when it gets to double figures or more, it's going to go off the screen. So I want to make sure it types this way. So I'm going to go in paragraph, so make sure I got my fonts tab selected, go to paragraph, which I scroll down to, and type right. And now it's going to move it back a little bit. You do want to leave some space up and below. So now if I press tab, for example, and start typing, notice that it goes that way. So I'll leave it at 0 for now. Perfect. The next thing I have to do is I have to give it some properties so that we can talk to this text and make it dynamic. So I'm just going to add a text property, and by default it's text, and string is fine. Okay, I don't want to make it any different than a string. I'm going to add a game property. In this case, I'm going to call it counter, and I'm going to make it an integer. Integer means just whole numbers, and it starts at 0. So now we can talk to this. All right, so now we need to receive a message from the game. So I'm going to press N to get rid of this. So remember, the message that I want to receive from the game is if I have this coin selected, I want it to receive this coin, but now it needs to send it to my text and not to empty. So I'm going to delete the empty and delete this empty. All right, so now they both should be gone. So to receive it, what I need to do is go back to over here. So I'm going to receive a message. Make sure your text is selected. Message. I'm going to select, I'm going to get my coin, right? Make sure it's spelled correctly from my guy. And what I want to do is I'm going to add. So I'm going to go to properties and not assign this time. I'm going to add. Okay. And it's going to add to my counter. Okay. And a value of 1. So every time I receive this message, it's going to add to my counter 1. And remember, my counter, if I go back over here, is this. Okay, my game property. So every time it's going to add 1. Okay. And now I'm going to assign this value to this number. So I'm going to add another actuator. And I'm going to add another property. And this time I'm going to assign it. So I'm going to assign, now this case is going to be my texts. Okay, so I'm going to assign the text, which is this text, the value of the counter. Hopefully I spelt it right. Nope, and this is where it's really important, where things get messed up. So counter. So I'm going to hook this one up as well. So it's going to display, okay, my counter text, which is adds each time I click on 1. So I wonder if this is going to work so far. Let's see. So we're going to go back to my game, and my camera's not a very good step right now, but that's okay. I'm just going to press P right now, and I'm going to move my guy forward. Okay, but I don't see anything because I haven't added the HUD, but at least the coins are still deleting. So first things first, I'm going to select my camera, and if I click on this plus button here, I have an option over here that says lock camera to view. This is a great way to move your camera. So I'm going to scroll back using my mouse, and I can hold Alt Option and change it to any view that I want. Now obviously when you do it with your first person shooter, it's going to be different, but for now this is how I want. So if I press P and move forward, I can see this. So now I'm going to add my HUD to this. So to do that, I have my camera selected, very important. I'm in my game scene. I'm going to add always. So I always want, okay, to go to scene. I'm not going to restart the scene. This says I'm going to add overlay scene. So I'm going to add my HUD, okay, to my scene. I hook it up. And now if I press P, notice that my 0 has come in. Now my 0 is a bit off, so I'd probably have to go back to my HUD scene, move it a bit to the left over here. Let's go back to my game and see how it looks. There it is, perfect. Now if I move forward, it adds. Yay. But it's restarting the game, which is not what I want. So to get rid of that, I'm going to have to go to my empty object. Remember, my empty object was the one that determined where we want. I don't want to do that anymore, so I'm going to delete it. Okay, so now if I press P and go forward, it's going to add, but nothing else is going to happen. So what I want is to make sure that we go to another scene. So I'm going to go back to my HUD, and here I'm going to determine where it goes. So my first step is I'm going to add a property. And so then when my property of counter is equal to 2, because I only have 2 coins, obviously you add more, okay? It's going to go to set scene to my win. Okay? So now if I test this, it's not going to work yet, but just to show you. So if I press P, okay, and I go 1, 2, it takes me, but look at this. I still have my game, so which is not what I want. So I go back to HUD. What I also have to add is I have to go to set scene. I also want to make sure that I end or remove scene. I want to remove my game. Okay, and some of you, what's going to happen is your HUD is also going to show up. So I also want to make sure that I end or remove the scene of HUD. And so then now when I go to my game and press P, I got 1, 2, and there it is, and everything else disappears. All right, so you can see your options are pretty limitless, especially later on when we add health. Okay, but for now, a health bar, for example. But for now, you can add a HUD to your camera and add some interactivity with your coins. Good luck.